What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. A bunch of stuff to talk about today, and there's one really big thing that happened yesterday that have people kind of freaking out about Nintendo Switch, and that is, of course, Grand Theft Auto 5 possibly being hinted at by what has become a pretty reliable source, one that has gotten stuff right in the past. So let's get started. So yesterday over on NeoGAF, Vern, who has been pretty popular over there in terms of making correct predictions from sources that more than likely are inside to Rockstar. Now, this is the person who pretty much started up the idea, and I guess you'd say even at the time, rumors of Noire possibly coming to the Nintendo Switch back in like January. It was a while ago. Like, it was a long while ago. That'd be possibly during the porting process that news would have really come out, and then it did take, as we see now, over 7 months to eventually come to fruition and be announced for the Nintendo Switch, along with the other systems. But Vern obviously had some sort of inside source at Rockstar to really be able to make that prediction and make it correctly at this point. And now, during a thread on Noire on the Switch, with people saying, why wasn't this Grand Theft Auto 5? Vern simply said, patience. Now, of course, this sent the entire thread like into a spiral, people freaking out, like, wait a minute, did this person just allude to the fact that Grand Theft Auto 5 is in the works right now? Is this a thing? And then, of course, as the thread, which is supposed to be about Noire, by the way, got out of control, Vern chimed in to clarify, saying, been sitting on this because I'm not sure it's really worthy of a post because I lack the most important details, but why not? Heard a while back, more from Rockstar is in development from my most reliable source, but wouldn't confirm what or when. Essentially was told it shouldn't be a surprise what title it is. Personally, fully expect a GTA title, whatever it may be, because it makes sense since you see everyone clamoring for it in every thread, and it's the biggest game on Earth. It's probably table tennis now, making a joke there. Now watch this post get turned into YouTube videos. He's good. When I said nothing at all of actual substance, for real, this is in no way confirming a GTA 5 port is coming. It's just my solid source giving me some info and my own educated guessing. Probably shouldn't have said anything. And Vern's absolutely right here. This could be nothing, but if his source really is that reliable, as we saw with the Noire announcement, everything there where that was called well in advance, probably again during the porting process, probably heard about this thing being ported, and they're talking about really a massive game from Rockstar, one that they can't seem to stop making money from, and that is Grand Theft Auto 5. It's a game that continues to be in the NPDs, continues to be in the UK sales charts, and yeah, why not? It's making so much money and they're selling so many copies. They seem to be moving it to all these systems, right? I mean, it was on 360, PS3, now it's obviously on Xbox One, PS4, and PC, and at this point, they kind of look around, and the one system that it's not on right now that is selling really well, that has an install base that is willing to buy big third-party titles, as we're probably going to see with Noire at this point, which is going to get really purchased a lot, I think. And then, of course, Skyrim and Doom will probably get picked up pretty well with good attach rates. Can you imagine GTA 5, if that does come out on the Switch, the attach rate for that? There are so many people now that are massive skeptics still of the Switch that talk about how GTA 5 is the game that they would love to play on it, and they would probably buy a Switch just to have a portable version of Grand Theft Auto 5, and I do believe that a portable version of Grand Theft Auto 5 would really help to sell even more Switches, and that kind of brings up, when would they even need this game, since there are so many games out now that are already having these systems fly off store shelves? And I think that's pretty simple. Next year, 2018, there are some holes that really that release could help to fill in during the release schedule of 2018. Specifically, I think they could use it sometime in the spring or early summer at this point. Now, of course, when Vern talked about Noire, it was like 7 months off just from being announced. So let's say it's like 6 months now from being announced for whatever Rockstar game this is. I'm thinking GTA 5. Could be Red Dead Redemption, although they haven't really wanted to port that or do anything with it because allegedly the coding for that is pretty bad. It's pretty messy. It's tough to get working on a lot of systems in its current state. Would take a lot of time. GTA 5 seems to be the better bet at this point, but we would see it, I would say, probably sometime in March it would get an announcement, right? For like an April, May, or even June release time. And that would be perfect for Nintendo to have that come out there because it would be too crowded in Christmas time now, and really it could be used in that spot to help fill in the gaps. But it's still a rumor, keep that in mind, from a source that has been reliable, but at this time, nothing's been announced, but now everyone is speculating because it is a game everyone's talking about. Everyone wants to see portably on the Nintendo Switch, so don't be surprised, I'll say that, if GTA 5 gets announced sometime early next year, because at this point, it's almost expected. Next up, let's move over to Sony and talk a little bit about Andrew House, the CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment, talking to Bloomberg in an interview at Tokyo Game Show, mostly talking about how they see limited potential, really, in the handheld market. They did kind of talk about Nintendo a little bit. He said, "The Nintendo device is a hybrid device, and that's a different approach and strategy. We have not seen handheld gaming outside of Japan as being a huge market opportunity. We remain focused around a highly connected gaming experience and also coupled with having a great range of other entertainment experiences so you can reach multiple people on the big screen in the household." Now, this is an interesting, really a couple of quotes here. Now, they obviously don't see things like a second Vita, straight up handheld device, as making sense considering smartphone devices are kind of taking over the handheld market on its own. And I think this is really why Nintendo moved to something like a hybrid device, one that can be considered really a home console and a handheld device in one. Right? You can play it on your TV or you can take it with you. That's a little more appealing to a lot of people, as we're seeing with sales, than just a handheld device. And Sony here obviously sees that the handheld market is kind of drying up. Just a handheld device is probably not going to compete well with phones, which are evolving constantly, like constantly evolving. We're already getting phones that are stronger than the Switch with the new iPhone and everything, so it's already happening there. And it's interesting that they don't see anything about handheld being appealing to them. Now, they do talk about Nintendo's hybrid as being different than a handheld device in their mind because it's both, again, a home console and a handheld. So while they don't seem super interested in a Vita 2, if you will, they definitely are kind of really looking at this as, well, a hybrid's different. So we have no plans of doing a handheld, but who knows where gaming goes in the future. Maybe at some point in time, way down the road, right, when chips start to become closer and closer with these mobile chips that are becoming very powerful, and of course, the desktop, I guess, CPU, GPUs, they'd call them, maybe someday everything is like a hybrid like the Switch is now. I'm talking a while from now, but that seems to be kind of what Sony's looking at. They see the Switch as being a different device than a handheld, and it's not quite a home console. I guess it is. It really is a hybrid. So Sony probably isn't coming out with a Vita 2 or anything, but who knows what the future holds really for any of these companies down the road. Maybe we get to a point where everything's a hybrid. Would that be a bad thing though? I don't think so, just because, hey, convenience is great to have. Now let's turn our attention to Atlas. Now, it's going to sound weird, of course, Sega and Atlas, Sega owns Atlas and everything, but what's interesting here is, if you didn't know, there's an emulator for the PS3 that is being worked on heavily by people right now. That's the RPCS3. I always get that mixed up, but it's an emulator that works well right now, to the point where you can play PS3 games on your PC. Specifically, one that they've advertised a lot is Persona 5. And Atlas, well, they didn't like that very much. In fact, they went and put a DMCA takedown notice against their Patreon page. And you know what Patreon said? Well, they said too bad, essentially. They basically told them there's really nothing that they're doing incorrectly right now, because emulators are seen as legal because they're not providing ROM files or ISO files. They're essentially developing a tool that pretty much emulates a system, in this case the PS3. And they even go as far as to say, look, you really should think about getting legal means of playing these games. Essentially, if you own the game and you're making a backup or ripping an ISO to then play on your computer, it's pretty much legal. Sure, it's still kind of a gray area because developers like Atlas don't like that you're playing this on the PC, because in their mind, you aren't getting the experience that they designed for it. They can't control this emulator, so they don't like it. That's one of the reasons they put this DMCA takedown in effect, to try to stop really these modders, or you can call them modders, programmers for emulators, to just completely stop them, cut off their money source is what they're doing. But of course, Patreon fought back and just said no. But Atlus did put out a statement that was kind of interesting because it does seem to allude to a possible PC version of Persona 5, saying, "We believe that our fans best experience our titles like Persona 5 on the actual platforms for which they are developed. We don't want their first experiences to be frame rate drops or crashes or other issues that can crop up in emulation that we have not personally overseen. We understand that many Persona fans would love to see a PC version, and while we don't have anything to announce today, we are listening. For now, the best way to experience Persona 5 is on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3. So at least that sounds like they're listening to fans. A PC version of Persona 5, sure, that'd be great. However, they seem to not realize that the people who are going through all of this trouble understand that it's not the way that they intend it to be played. I mean, the whole thing of doing all these settings and all this madness to get an emulator to run even at 30 frames per second, settings, configuration files, loading BIOSes into it, all this stuff, it's not like these are everyday consumers. These aren't the people walking into Walmart and buying a PlayStation 4 to play it. These are people that have a lot of technical know-how making their computers run a game it shouldn't. So they understand there will be frame rate drops. They understand this is not the exact experience that they would get on a PlayStation 3 or on a PlayStation 4. They just want to either play the game on their PC as well, because there will be probably graphical updates that really go into this emulator, or they just don't have a PS3 maybe and they want to play it on their computer after buying the PS3 version. Or of course, I know Atlus is worried because people are going to pirate this game. It's gonna happen, I understand, but in that sense, you could also jailbreak a PS3 and just download the ISO that way. So what are they going to do there? Are they going to go DMCA all these jailbreaking sites as well? Seems like a tall task for one publisher to be getting into. It seems crazy to me, but at least the people who are making the emulator did kind of meet them halfway. They took out any and all references to Persona 5, and it's all off of their compatibility list, it's off their site, everything. So they at least respected the wishes. I just think it's a little low for Atlus to go after their money source, their Patreon, when they really haven't done anything wrong in this case. And in our last bit of news, we're going to talk about two different Switch games, both of which that have had kind of technical specs released. The first one we're going to touch on is LA Noire. Of course, we don't know which version it is. A lot of people assume, okay, it's a 360 PS3 version being ported over, and then of course the resolution will be increased, which it is. It has been confirmed at this point by Rockstar that it is going to be 1080p native on the Switch when docked, and of course the native screen resolution of 720p when in handheld mode, which is great because, well, the PS3 and 360 version just ran at 720p native at all times. The 360 version, I believe, would upscale to 1080, whereas the PS3 version would just leave it at 720 on your screen. Either way, though, this is a jump for the Switch version, as I think we would expect. I knew it was 720p on the older system, so when I saw it announced for the Switch, I expected 1080p because the Switch is more capable when it comes to resolution compared to the 360 and the PS3. Now, a lot of people are going to try to figure out what version is this. Is it the PS4 and Xbox One version, or is it just the 360 version, just straight up? Maybe it's 360 version with added shadows, anti-aliasing, who knows? I can guarantee you, obviously, Digital Foundry will look at this thing hard, so by then, in November, midway through, we'll know a lot more than we do now. At least now you can rest assured it's going to be 1080p native on the Switch when it comes out. And then the one I'm really excited to look at is Mario Odyssey. Digital Foundry did an entire look at it, and it is now 900p rather than 720p, 60 frames per second. The picture mode where you take pictures drops to 30, but adds in more detail. But according to them, it seems to be nearly a rock solid 60 frames per second and 900p docked, 720p when in handheld mode, and they're using all kinds of little tricks in handheld mode as well, like really less detail, far off in the distance where you won't notice on that smaller screen. But I'm very happy to know that they did manage to make a jump in resolution to 900p at 60 frames. I'm sure they could have done something like 1080p at 30. No, I don't want that. 900 at 60 is fine. I don't mind it. My Xbox One does 900p most times right now, ahead of the Xbox One X, obviously, which would be more 4K. And I prefer that 60 frames per second experience, especially with a platformer like Mario. Super important. I can't wait for this game to come out. I can't stress that enough. I'm so excited to to play some 60 frames per second action with Mario Odyssey. And that's it for Newswave today, guys. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me think about any of the stuff we talked about today, whether it is LA Noire's resolution or Mario's resolution. Are you excited that both of those seem to be higher? And then, of course, Mario Odyssey is kicking at 60 frames per second. Super exciting there. And what are your thoughts about Grand Theft Auto 5 possibly going to the Switch? Does it seem to make complete sense to you? And you're like, well, yeah, we feel like we knew it was going to be showing up eventually. And do you, I guess, at this point, do you trust rumors like these that kind of flow around the internet, since LA Noire seemed to be correct and it seemed to show up like 6 months down the road? Maybe next year we'll hear about Grand Theft Auto 5 and finally get a portable version of that game. Thanks, guys, for watching. I'll see you next time.